This is the January 2018 top 10 list of movies that were released here in the UK. For those that don't know so yet, by the way, is that we get release films a couple of weeks after the Americans, sometimes at the same time, but you might be watching this and wondering why are some of the films in this list and not in like December's 2017's list. It's because it's when it came out over here. And that will factor into when I saw them and when they appear on the list. So jumping in at number 10 was The Darkest Hour. This was Gary Oldman's Oscar-winning film, I believe, about him playing Winston Churchill. It comes after a slew of films where numerous people played Winston Churchill. I still remember Christian Slater's version when an American played him. It's like, what on earth? Gary Oldman. Anyway, American. It seems like we don't have any British actors left that can play a role. Although we did have one, and unfortunately his film wasn't perceived as well. I hated it. I did fall asleep for 20 minutes in the middle, so I have to admit that. That's why it's number 10. But it sent me to sleep. It was the middle of the day. I was watching it with a friend, and oh yeah, it's just him talking and it's just him acting weirdly, and it's set in the past. We never see any of the fight scenes, we never see any of the war, we just see him as a person doing these weird things and how he gets up at the day and how he needs his power naps, and we just watch Gary Oldman get lung cancer by smoking constantly and overeat because I saw the Graham Norton interview he did, and he explained how ill he got preparing for the role. So full respect to him as an actor, and he deserves the awards he won. But as a film, I was bored senseless. I fell asleep for 20 minutes of it. I say 20, it's probably less, but you know when you fall asleep in the cinema, you just lose track of time. But I didn't really care to catch up. I could have gone back to watch it. Nah, don't care. And that ranks at number 10 because, well, frankly, I'm trying to put this list of 10 films that I saw in the month of the new releases, and that's just number 10 for what it is. Which also brings me to number 9, which is The Post. This is Tom Hanks's big film about the revelation from the newspapers, and this was interesting. I did watch it to the end and I did enjoy it, but it's not it's not a film I'm going to watch again. It's nice that it's a biography film, a film that details an event in these people's lives, and it was a moment, but it was still it was like a small chunk. It was only the start of a story, and we never really got to see the payoff, and the story in itself was just about a bunch of journalists doing their job. Yet there comes a point where, well, did it really deserve a film of its own? Just a bunch of people printing a paper? It felt very much like a TV movie for Sunday afternoon, and it was only because of the calibre of the actors in the production and the director that the film got a cinema release, because it wanted to get an Oscar and it wanted to be nominated for awards, when really it was a straight television movie. I don't know much to say about it. It's one of those films that if you into the subject, into these kind of subjects where you're let to see a life through the journey that people go on, The Post does have some moments that are worth looking into, but it's not a film I'm ever going to watch again. Number 8 was Early Man. Now, Early Man is an animated film. I think I took my niece to see this one, and she didn't like it. She got bored. It was a clay animation, and it's made by the same people who did Wallace and Gromit, and it's all about these cavemen who basically have a football match against, I think they're the Romans, and basically they have a football match to decide who gets to claim ownership of the land and the moon rules that are there. And it is okay. The animation is spectacular, as you would expect by Aardman, who have got a very good track record. I just think the script needed more jokes in it. It had one or two good ones, and it had it had a few jokes that were for the adults to enjoy, so that was nice to see. But still, there weren't enough jokes to warrant a repeat viewing, and that's why it only ranks as number 8 on my list. I'm glad that I saw it. I've watched it to the end, but I will never watch it again. And it's not one of those films I think I can highly recommend. Unlike the next film, which is number 7, which is The Greatest Showman. This is Hugh Jackman's film based on the story of whatever his name is. I can't remember that. You'll know more than me probably. The name's not coming to the top of my head. But it's about him opening up his circus of freak shows, attractions, and then getting sidetracked by trying to go the more popular route with singers and sort of having an affair. The story itself never really shows us the truth. P.T. Selbert, I think his name was, and the thing is, we don't know the true story about what happened. There's been a lot of hearsay and stories in the press, and apparently some history books have come out, but no one in the film. I don't believe it. I don't believe that he would not have that affair with that person who he was idolising, and I don't believe, especially after being away for all those months, and it seems weird that he would treat his freak show people the way they were, and they still became a family and protected him. And it also doesn't make any sense in that kind of world why those freak show people would burn down the building. If the film is a fantasy, if you take the film as a fantasy fiction film, then it is fine in that kind of vein. If you're trying to say it's a true story, you're going to have problems. But the artistic style of it, the musical numbers are good. I can't remember any of the songs. It's not one of those. It's not got any catchy songs, but it does have some songs that repeat themselves, and there are enough musical numbers to make it an entertaining journey. It is a film that I think you should all watch, and I think maybe you will watch it again, especially on like a date night situation. But what do I think about it? It ranks in at number 7, and it is what it is. So number 6 on my list was Bright. Bright was a straight-to-Netflix movie starring Will Smith. It's set in a world of The Lord of the Rings, which is now in modern day. So imagine if Lord of the Rings happened, it happened in the past about 1,000 years ago, and we are now in today, and the orcs have become a part of society, and one orc joins the police force and has to be the partner to Will Smith's human character, and he is a person who hits fairies. Now, the thing about this film is I've seen it before, and I never said this initially because I didn't have the show back then, but when I watched this film on Netflix, I had seen this entire film word for word before, and it was some kind of straight-to-video release, and it was only in the early 2000s, and I still cannot remember its name, but I remember seeing the entire plot almost verbatim done from that script. So that made it a little bit interesting because I tried looking around for the name. I tried to remember it. I tried racking my brain to think, where is this script from? And it was one of those films I know only I saw because it was one of those movies that didn't get mainstream publication because of its name, what it was. And I couldn't find anybody else saying anything about it online. So I'm saying that now, in case anybody there who's out there watching this can help me identify the film that Bright is ripping off. But Bright in itself, with the lead stars of Will Smith and the other guy, sorry I don't know your name, it's an entertaining journey. 2 cops on some kind of quest in this sort of alternate reality world. There's not much in the world of in the fantasy world building process. It's basically Earth. If you took the orcs and turned them to black people, and the fairies and turned them into Chinese people, that is the script. And we've seen it before in Training Day, and we've seen it before in so many other films where the same kind of 2 cops have to fight corruption amongst their own. It's nothing special. All they've done is added a magics department, which makes no sense. But they've done things to try and take a verbatim movie and give it a unique twist. And, well, because it's only a couple of clicks away, you can go to Netflix, you're 2 clicks away from watching it, it makes it an enjoyable afternoon film to watch. I'd probably put it for a Sunday afternoon adventure. It is a film I will watch again. It has enough Will Smith charisma to make me want to watch it again. And I think maybe with a second or third viewing, I can appreciate some more of the fantasy elements. Some of it was lost and because it was about police corruption with humans majority wise, so maybe with another viewing I'll catch something new. But I do recommend it. I put it at number 6. Number 5 is Downsizing. This was a film I had so much hope for. Downsizing, when I saw the trailer, I was like, yes! I thought an original concept, an original film, not a sequel, not a parody, not a prequel. It was just a film, brand new, not trying to be a spin-off or anything. And the trailer was great, and I was looking forward to it. And when I went to the cinema for the first 45 minutes, I had a smile on my face. It was the best world building they had done in ages. And then the cleaner comes in, and the last hour is some of the worst. It's as though it's a completely different film. The whole last half of Downsizing could have been set in the real world. Nothing about them being small plays a part in the second half of the film. It's all about global warming, and we're going to try and build this underground shelter. But they build the underground shelter while they were small, so why didn't they do it when they were big? It makes no sense. The whole subplot about if you're going to build, why? I get it, you need a class system. Even in the Downsizing world, you need a class system. And so they have these cleaners who basically live in a portable cabin which has been modified as the slums. So they've got the slums of the Downsizing world. But it still doesn't make any sense. Why can't even the slums be given dolls' houses? We've got, as adults, we can all build dolls' houses. Why wouldn't you just build your own doll's house before you go small and stick it in there? It's not as the whole idea of the concept of going small is that land mass is in abundance, and they had tons of it. They were out we saw when they went outside the little dome that there was tons of space they could have put another bunch of houses for those cleaners to live in, so they weren't having to go up all those steps or build an elevator. It's a model railway. People do it for fun. So as soon as it was as though they had this great concept for a film, but had nothing to do with it. And I could have given them a plot. There could have been jugs. People. They started it with the character who was smuggling things in from the outside, which never really gets explained either. There was a whole subculture they could have built there about the illegal trading of different supplies. Why was smuggling in WD-40 an issue? And they could have done a story around that. They could have done a story where Matt Damon's character goes off to find his wife who had abandoned him, and for whatever reason he falls out of the truck, and as a small person he has to make it back to his house. So he's on this adventure of a small person in the large world, and you've got a little bit of the borrowers kind of situation. That's a much more interesting story than what we got. Instead, what we got was Matt Damon having a relationship with this weird cleaner person who he sort of crushed on, who barely speak English, had a bad leg, and he just ended up being the idiot for the film. It had so much promise and it ruined it. And I really am disappointed that they let such a concept go to waste. But that was Downsizing, and that's number 5. Number 4 is Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Now, Jumanji was the big film starring The Rock, Kevin Rock, and Jack Black, and Gillian. I can't remember her surname. Doctor Who's companion. And these 4 characters go on an adventure in the Jumanji world. This was a lot more fun than it should have been. Nobody, I think, was giving it even any kind of hope. It was one of those films that was set to fail purely from hearing it was another Jumanji film. But the film came out and it was a roaring success. It's not without its problems. Why was the 2 guards who were holding the hangar mission, which was so difficult for the pilot, to ace pilot, to get to the thing, why was it so difficult? I mean, firstly, there was only 2 guards. You can just shoot them or just do whatever you want with them. The girl took them out by dancing. So really that shouldn't have been an issue. And then it already told us that the guy had already gone there twice, found the helicopter or something, or the plane or the hot air balloon, and he got shot down and died or whatever it is. And so he was down to his third life. He was worried about losing it. I get that, but it wasn't so much of a challenge. Just kill the two bad guys and then take your time over which vehicle to take afterwards. And to be honest, I only saw 3 vehicles that could fly in that hangar. So it's pretty obvious what vehicle to take. Because if the other 2 he's already done and failed, well, there's your answer. There's only 1 left. And, well, it just, again, it's like, oh, come on. I want to slap him around the face and say, look, you use your common sense. Stop making margarita. If you're allergic to mosquitoes, surely the jungle is the wrong place for you to be hiding out. Anyway, I'm ranting again, and I do that a lot in this series. But basically, Jumanji has some great moments with The Rock. He really his pupils. I can't do it. His smouldering face really has some comedy moments, along with Kevin Rock and Jack Black and Julian. But all of them really excel in their roles. They make it a fun movie to watch. I will watch it several more times. I've watched it 4 times already. And I will watch it when it comes out on Blu-ray because I will buy it. It's just a fun movie. The end bad guy, he's just a villain for the sake of being a villain. I don't think we needed him. I think the world should have been the villain. The game should have been the villain. We didn't need some token person to pop up. But I'm going to give it a pass. And that ranks in at number 4 of my favourite films of January. Number 3, I'm going to get another drink now. Number 3 was Maze Runner, the Death Cure. Now, Maze Runner was the third film in this trilogy. The first one was great, was a bit confusing, didn't make much sense, but you trusted it. The second one was a zombie film, which was like completely, it was another film with the same cast. And then the third film tries to make sense of the first 2. And it's a fun film, but again, not without its flaws. Almost every film I ever talk about has more flaws than I can count. Maze Runner is one of those films where it's such a fun adventure that you go on this journey, and there's so much action. When they go into the city, they get over the wall. We'll ignore the some of these plot points just happen because they need to happen. So when they get into the future city, which is supposed to be protected by a wall to stop all the zombies getting in, you've got these moments with these big scenes. It becomes fun to watch. But that's pretty much all it is. It has this kind of subplot between the blood of our main star having the cure for the virus in it. And it's like, well, you know, actually, if your blood really can save the human race, and these people have the equipment to do it, as bad as the situation is, as much as you want to get out of there, surely you can just give them a pint of blood each week and let them do what they can. You don't need to be their prisoner. You can. This is one of those perfect opportunities where you come up with a deal. You sit there and talk to them. Don't fight. Don't shoot it out. I mean, if there's a possible, and especially when the girl who was the double agent, who was back at the rebels base, like I can't remember what they were called, and she saw the blood test on the daughter who had been cured. So the daughter had been cured of I can't remember the names now, but she saw how much that whatever the blood that they were using had been cured of the virus, and she recognised that between the 2 of them, one of them for sure, probably both, had the cure to the virus, which is what they've been seeking this entire time. And as bad as what the situation is and what they had done, there was a point now where you could save the human race, and you're just screaming at these people to just stop being stupid and, you know, work together, because they're both, but the cure is what they all need. But ignoring that, the film is a very good adventure film with lots of action, and it's set in the future, which I always love as well. and it concludes the whole trilogy, and it doesn't try and split it into a part A or part B like the Harry Potters and the Twilights have done. It just says, here's the third film in a trilogy. It's a trilogy book series, it's a trilogy movie series, and I'll give it an extra couple of points for that. Is it better than Jumanji? I've said yes, that's why it's number 3 on the list. I will probably say Jumanji has more of a rewatchability factor. I would watch Jumanji again over Maze Runner Death Cure, but I think Maze Runner Death Cure is more risk taking. It sets up. It's trying to tell a much bigger story, and has lots more characters, and it's a lot more of a journey that these people go on and what they've got to do. That it deserves the ranking above it on a top 10 list for what they've achieved. I'd still say Jumanji's the better one to rewatch, but there we go. So number 2. And number 2 might shock a few people, and that's The Commuter. The Commuter starring Liam Neeson. It seems like every 6 months Liam Neeson puts out another action film. It's basically Taken 1, 2, 3, Taken on a bus, Taken on a train, Taken on a plane. Where was it? Walk Among the Tombstones. Then he did that other thing. Liam Neeson does an action film usually twice a year, and this was his Commuter one. The Commuter is a film where he plays a passenger on a train. He gets given a proposal to find someone who isn't supposed to belong there on the train, and if he does it, he gets to take this money home and keep it. But the situation goes sour, and he has to end up trying to save everybody on the train and save people, big conspiracy, etc. It's a good film. It's a good one-off, decent action film. Starts off as a thriller, with a mystery, then it becomes tense, then it becomes an action film. The film has so much momentum going from scene to scene to scene, and each one escalating in tension, that it's an enjoyable journey to go on. And I loved it. I love the fact that what would you do in this situation? Would you have taken the money? Would you have taken the offer? How did you go about trying to find that person who doesn't belong? And as he eliminates people one by one, what are the problems? What will happen to that person once he finds them? You have all these questions that you start to ask yourself, and they get answered in the film. And I think that's the problem with like Jumanji is you don't get an answer for why the machine was there. Why was it a game? Why was there a villain? In Maze Runner, certain questions don't get answered, like why are they all so stupid? But in The Commuter, they ask those questions and they answer them. And it's very rare in a movie nowadays that you get a fiction film which is so grounded in its world, where its story has an explanation for everything that happens. And The Commuter does that, and for that reason alone it deserves high praise on this list. But it's one of those films I will watch. I put it in the same vein as the Die Hard films and Under Siege. This is basically a train film. This is a basically Die Hard on a train, but the terrorist is not what you expect. It's a very interesting take on it, and I think it's Liam Neeson's one of his better films, and that's The Commuter. Now I know the reviews online will not probably praise it as much as I have, but if you just love a good all-out action film where you're watching it, check it out. So number 1 on my list is Coco. Coco is an animated feature about a young boy who goes to the land of the dead. Now my niece, I wanted to take my niece to see this, but I didn't. Once I read the reviews online because it came out before over here, it was about taking a boy to a land of the dead where there's dead people, and it's how the death works, and I didn't feel it was right to take her, and I'm glad I didn't. The film is very much for adults only. It's not got any real musical numbers, even though it's about musicians. It's about two musicians, well 3 really, but we don't have any real numbers from them. Not really, nothing that stands out as memorable. But the animation is spectacular. I think it's a Pixar production, and it also captures the spirit of Mexico and the Day of the Dead and what they celebrate. And the world building is phenomenal because it's a Pixar film. Well, they don't really do any wrong. But I will say the subject matter is perhaps really deep, and I do fear that after what they did with Inside Me and these other films that are coming out, they've started to lose the joy. Coco, as good as it was, because it's number 1 on this list, I wasn't laughing, I wasn't smiling. I was intrigued with the adventure. I was intrigued with the world of the dead, because there's a whole subculture of Mexicans in a dead world. So you've got the Mexican world, which I'm not familiar. Being English, I don't experience that world. Then you've got the dead world, and then you've got the rules of the dead. So what are the rules for a dead person to come back to Earth, and how do we explain that and capitalise on it? So because of all those plus points, it ranks at a number 1. But it has, as an animated feature, it could have been a little more light-hearted. They could have made a few more... They could have added more music to it, which is weird when it's a film about musicians. Why it was a bit depressing. Yes, it's about death, but if you want to get away from that negative the negative atmosphere of a dead land, they could have done more upbeat, pleasant songs that would have made you enjoy it more. Having said that, it's a film I do highly recommend. I will watch it again a few more times because I love the world building it sets in. I've said that a few times now, and I just think it ranks as number 1 on the list. I will mention a shout out to Paddington 2, which is something else I saw this month. It was okay. I watched it to the end, but I will never watch it again. And Ladybird, which I got through half an hour of and turned it off. Honestly, I can't pronounce your name, but that film's not for me, and I never intend to watch any more of it ever again. So let's look at the top 10 list for January. We've got number 1 is Coco, number 2 is The Commuter, number 3 is Maze Runner Death Cure, number 4 is Jumanji, number 5 is Downsizing, number 6 is Bright, number 7 is The Greatest Showman, number 8 is Early Man, number 9 is The Post, and number 10 is The Darkest Hour. That's January. I hope you enjoyed the list. There'll be more on the way.